In Islam, Allah is omniscient, all-knowing. Nothing happens except by Allah's will. Allah Himself has free will, and Allah cannot make a mistake. Muslims believe the purpose of life and the main reason why Allah put us on earth is because it's a test for salvation. But life on earth cannot be a test for salvation. The test was already completed before life on earth even took place. In Islam, humans do not have free will, because Allah knows our past, present, and future before our creation. Allah knows whether we'll go to heaven or hell. He knows all of this before our birth. There is nothing and can never be free will and or freedom of choice in the religion of Islam. All living creatures have been predetermined by Allah, even before their creation. In the Qur'an, chapter 54, Allah says, "Indeed, all things we created with predestination." In the Sahih Muslim hadith, Muhammad said, Allah ordained the measures of quality of creation 50,000 years before He created the heavens and the earth. And in the Sahih Bukhari hadith, Muhammad said, the creation of a human being is put together in the womb of the mother. Then Allah sends an angel who is ordered to write 4 things. He is ordered to write down his deeds, his livelihood, his date of death, and whether he will be blessed or wretched in religion. Then the soul is breathed into him, so a man amongst you may do good deeds till there is only a cubit between him and paradise. And then what has been written for him decides his behavior, and he starts doing evil deeds characteristic of the people of the hellfire. And similarly, a man amongst you may do evil deeds till there is only a cubit between him and the hellfire. And then what has been written for him decides his behavior, and he starts doing deeds characteristic of the people of paradise. This hadith makes it clear that every human being is predestined by Allah, and therefore has no free will, since prior to our birth Allah has already written and finalized our fate. In this Sahih Bukhari hadith, Muhammad said, Adam and Moses argued with each other. Moses said to Adam, "O Adam, you are our father who disappointed us and turned us out of paradise." Then Adam said to him, "O Moses, Allah favored you with His talk to you directly, and He wrote the Torah for you with His own hand. Do you blame me for action which Allah has written in my fate 40 years before my creation?" This means Shaitan had nothing to do with Adam disobeying Allah, because Allah predestined Adam to disobey Him in the first place. Furthermore, in 6:125, Allah says, "So whoever Allah wants to guide, He expands his breast to contain Islam, and whoever He wants to misguide, He makes his breast tight and constricted as though he were climbing into the sky. Thus does Allah place defilement upon those who do not believe." This means people cannot believe in Islam since they have been deliberately blinded from the truth by Allah, because only Allah can decide who gets to believe and who doesn't. In 10:100, Allah says, "And it is not for a soul to believe except by permission of Allah, and He will place defilement upon those who will not use reason." Again, this means Allah is the one who ordains whether or not one of His slaves can believe or not, and it is Allah who places obstacles and doubts into the minds of such humans and then punishes them for being evil. The whole concept of predestination even bothered a companion of Prophet Muhammad. In this Sahih Muslim hadith, Abu al-Aswad, a companion of Muhammad, felt greatly disturbed with the whole notion of predestination, since everything is created by Allah and lies in His power. On the Day of Judgment, Allah would not be questioned as to what He does, but His creations would be questioned. Why should the creation pay the consequences for its creator? In Tafsir al-Tabari, Volume 1, page 199, Muhammad said, "The first thing created by Allah was the pen. Allah said to it, 'Write.' The pen asked, 'What shall I write?' Allah replied, 'Write what is predestined.' He continued, and the pen proceeded at that very hour to write whatever was and whatever is going to be for all times." And in Tabari Volume 1, page 202, says, "People will proceed merely in accordance with what is a foregone conclusion, decided by predestination and written down by the pen." In Tabari Volume 1, page 305, it says, "When God created Adam, He took his progeny from his back like tiny ants. He took 2 handfuls and said to those on the right, "Enter paradise in peace." And he said to the others, "Enter the fire, I do not care." And on the very next page, on 306, Muhammad said, God created Adam, then rubbed his back with his right hand and brought forth from it his progeny. Then he said, I have created these for paradise, and they will act as the inhabitants of paradise. Then he rubbed his back with his left hand and said, I have created those for the fire, and they will act as the inhabitants of the fire. A man asked, O Messenger of God, how is that? Muhammad replied, when Allah creates a human being for paradise, He employs him to act as the inhabitants of paradise, and he will enter paradise. And when Allah creates a human being for the fire, He will employ him to act as the inhabitants of the fire, and will thus make him enter the fire. This means Allah has created people whose sole purpose is to burn in hell in the afterlife. In 7:178 to 179, Allah says, whoever Allah guides, He is the rightfully guided, and whoever He sends astray is those who are the losers. And we have certainly created for hell many of the jinn and mankind. They have hearts with which they do not understand, they have eyes with which they do not see, and they have ears with which they do not hear. Those are like livestock, rather they are more astray, it is they who are the headless. Again, there are men and jinn created for the sole purpose to suffer in the hellfire. In 32:13 Allah says, and if we had willed, we could have given every soul its guidance, but the word from me will come into effect that I will surely fill hell with jinn and people all together. Allah could have chosen to guide all of humanity to heaven, like a true merciful, kind, loving God, but He chose not to. In the Sahih Bukhari hadith, Muhammad said, Allah will say, O Adam. Adam will reply, I respond to your calls, I am obedient to your orders, and all the good is in your hands. Then Allah will say to Adam, bring out the people of the fire. Adam will say, what, how many are the people of the fire? Allah will say, out of every 1,000, take out 999 persons. This means out of every 1,000 people, Allah will assign 999 of them, through no fault of their own, to His hellfire, to be tormented and punished forever and forever. The Qur'an and hadith are in complete agreement that there is no free will when it comes to salvation or damnation. These decisions are made ahead of time by Allah and assigned to all of humanity. In conclusion, according to Islamic beliefs, number 1, life on earth is not a test for salvation, for what is there to test if the results are known ahead of time and there's nothing we can do to change them? Number 2, Qiyamah, the Islamic Day of Judgment, is a sham, for we are not being judged based on our behaviors, but on Allah's previous decision. Number 3, people are not led to Islam because it's a superior message or religion, but because Allah decided that they would become Muslims whether they wanted to or not. Number 4, since the vast majority of human beings who have ever lived and who are living today are not Muslim, Allah must have created the vast majority of human beings for the express purpose of condemning them to Jahannam. Therefore, the primary purpose of creation must be hell and suffering, not paradise and salvation. Number 5. The creation of shaitan is pointless, because Satan cannot deceive anyone, since Allah has already preordained people to be good or bad. In a nutshell, Islam is just another man-made religion that isn't compatible with common sense. If you think about it, Islam just doesn't make sense. I just don't know what else to say. Like, you just gotta think about it.